You are listening to Comedy Club for Kids presents Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense. Hello and welcome to Radio Nonsense, the official Comedy Club for Kids podcast that's suitable for all ages from to and everything in between. I'm Tiernan, and as you know, listeners, I need a new home for this podcast while Comedy Club for Kids HQ is still overrun with far too many stinky hippos. And this week, I have found a lovely place to be. Haven't I, Linda? Linda? Linda?
Who's Linda? Can I have her over for dinner too?
I'm not sure who Linda is. I'm not sure.
Not sure who she is, or if she can come.
Either. As you can hear, listeners, this is a lovely old lady called Snaggletooth who has kindly taken me in and has been looking after me so nicely.
I am not a witch. Eat another cake and fatten you up nice.
Oh, yum, thanks, I will. Now listen, Snaggletooth, I just need a bit of time to record this week's show. Is that okay?
Yes, I'll just get some new ties and then prepare you a nice hot cauldron. Yum.
Oh, that sounds lovely. You are too kind, Mrs. Snaggletooth. Okay, this week I have a very exciting competition to tell you all about, but first, let me have a quick check of the mailbag. This lovely message is from Eduardo in the UK, who says, "You smell like poo, and you have massive hairy poo feet." Ah, how nice. Well, if I have massive hairy poo feet, of course I'll smell like poo. I mean, it'd be more weird to have massive hairy poo feet and smell of something like lavender or mint, wouldn't it? I think you'll find, Eduardo, that I take great care to be themed from my feet to my general odour. You know, it's just part of what I do. I don't want there to be any kind of malcoordination between how my feet smell or how my feet look and how they smell. So thank you for your message. I'm glad you've noticed.
I like the smells, and it makes me think you'll be even more delicious for my tea. Yum, hair poo feet stew. Yum. I'm not a witch.
Thanks, Mrs. Snaggletooth, for the support. Okay, listeners, now as usual, I'm afraid this competition is just for you lot in the UK and Ireland. But as you'll hear in a minute, this week's most importantest guest is the very funny author Gary Panton, and he has released an excellently funny novel called The Notwitches, about a young girl named Melinda who has monstrous aunts that treat her badly, until she meets an older girl, Mitch, who knows a little thing or two about magic. It is for ages 7 to 11. It is absolutely hilarious, and it has brilliant illustrations by Dottie Sutton too. Gary is kindly giving away 5 copies of The Notwitches that will be signed by him and Dottie, and he might throw in some extra Notwitches stuff too. All you have to do is tell me what the most rubbish magic spell you could think of is, how you would cast it, and what exactly it would do. And the 5 funniest will win a book. It is that easy. So send in your answers, your funniest, most rubbish spell ideas, and you can send those in by finding your nearest slug brains, grown-ups, and getting them to help you email me at podcast@comedyclubforkids.co.uk. I will only accept email entries for this one. You can't enter any other way, and you have got until April the 23rd to send them in. So get making spells.
They are not witches like me. Now, please put some salt on your head, thanks.
Sure. Okay, Mrs. Snaggletooth. You can, of course, also use that email to send me anything else you like, whether it's a joke or a question that needs to be answered on the show. And if your grown-ups would like to help support this show, they can sign you up to the advert-free Linda edition for a small fee on Apple Podcasts, Acast Plus, or patreon.com/Comedy Club for Kids. And please also check out all of our live shows at comedyclubforkids.co.uk.
I will. Then maybe I can lure in more tasty dinner treats to my home. More salt, please.
Great. Of course I'll put more salt on, Mrs. Snaggletooth. Oh, she's so nice. Now, while I salt myself, which I'm sure is some sort of nice wellness treatment, they do that at spas, don't they? I'm sure they do. Why don't you listen to this most importantest bit? Radio Nonsense listeners, I am very excited that joining me today is the lead campaigner to rename zebra crossings to skunk crossings and have all the added smells. Yes, it's Gary Panton. Gary, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you, Tiernan. Thank you so much for having me on and allowing me to talk about a subject that is so close to my heart. You know what it's like with these animal crossings. There are so many different animals getting their names in the frame. Pelicans and
Yes.
zebras. Why is it pelicans and zebras anyway? Because there's not really any sort of consistency with that system. Like you'd think you would choose all the black and white animals, your
Yes.
your penguins, your other black and white animals,
Badgers. Yeah,
your badgers,
absolutely.
yes.
Yes.
The long-tailed tit, I think, is
Yes.
a black and white animal.
You're correct. Yes.
So I think first thing we need to do as a society is decide on that system,
Yes.
and I think that's something we can all get on board with. And then the next stage is to introduce the skunk crossing.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
what shape that will take is open to the community.
Right.
I think there obviously needs to be a smell element to it. I think
Yes,
you want.
I think because a lot of people don't with these crossings you've got people who are visually impaired. There's the sound that goes, and then there are for people who are audibly impaired. There's the black and white kind of crossing. But what about people who need smell to find their way around? What I think a skunk smell would really help people know where that crossing is.
Yeah, and you could have a tiny little dung beetle crossing just next to it, which would be nice for them as well. But I think, yeah, no one looks after the hard of smelling at all in these situations, really. And what you want is that scenario where they get to the crossing, there's a horrific smell. That means there's a car coming. Or would it mean there's a car not coming? I don't know. Is it better to cross when there is a bad smell?
You would definitely iron out, because I think you'd have to. It could be very confusing for people if that. But I think skunks release a smell to warn. Do they release a smell to warn you, or do they just do it because they're horrible?
I just think it's spite, really.
Right.
I don't think it's like any sort of logic to it other than they just don't like you.
Right,
They're very, and it's like antisocial behavior. And yeah, so I guess a car hitting you is quite antisocial as well. So
yes, true,
let's say the bad smell means there's a car coming.
Yes.
When the smell hits you, you stop, and then when the smell goes away, who knows how long that'll take? Might be a windy day. Might be a hot day. In which case it's going to linger.
It's a whole afternoon. Yeah.
But I think at its heart, this is a good system that is going to take care of more of the community.
I think it's a wonderful system. I really hope it's implemented. I should say, I do think it'd be fun. And I mean, obviously it's not sensible, and it might not help you pass your plans, but I do think every now and then it should just smell because the crossing doesn't like you.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really thought about judgmental crossings before, but I think that is something that maybe people would stop and think a bit more about their behaviour if crossings were saying you're not going to get to cross. We don't like you. You've done something awful. You can wait. The other people can cross. I think there's a future in that.
It's sensible, and also because sometimes, and I know often we wonder why a chicken is crossing a road, but rarely is it asked why anyone else is crossing a road. And sometimes I think crossing should be saying, maybe you can't cross the road today. You don't need to go to that shop. You're going to waste your money. Like maybe it could be looking out. Maybe, I don't know. That could be a bit too much power to give a crossing, and I worry that what if it started to get to its head, and then next thing we know, it won't let anyone cross. And yeah,
you're just going to start having crossings sort of running for government, and just being like mindless dictators telling everyone what to do, sort of coming to your house and telling you what TV shows to watch and things. So I want the crossings to stay where they are on the streets.
Yes,
because that's where they're doing their best work. But they could be improved for smelling impaired.
I think that's nice. I mean, I was sort of questioning, trying to add things to your very good plan, and clearly you've mapped this out. You've campaigned for a while. I apologise for I sort of got carried away with the idea of malevolent crossings, but I do have to. One thing you did make me think though is I still don't really know why pelican crossings are pelican crossings. I've never seen a pelican cross the road. Pelican crossings don't look like pelicans. There's nothing about it? Like, how did that animal get in there? How did that bird get that nomination?
Yeah, even, I mean, if you're thinking of an animal, the pelican's not coming to mind straight away. Even if you're asked to think of a bird, it's not top of the list. You have
No.
to wonder how many animals they went through before they got to the pelican. Were the animals just turning them down flat, saying, I do not want my name on this? Absolutely not. And how many animals were saying no before they get to the pelican? Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for pelicans because they're not doing much else. I mean, they're hanging around with massive mouths, but you don't. They do eat pigeons occasionally, so
Do they?
that's the only thing I know about pelicans is that they'll swallow a pigeon whole, and they will
Whoa.
help you cross a road. But beyond that, do we really need them?
I mean, you've started to. I'm wondering if there's some conspiracy here. Maybe it was to reduce pigeons. If you put pelican crossings everywhere, pigeons will be thinking, "I'm not going to cross that road. This isn't safe for me and my pigeon friends." Maybe this was part of the scheme. I mean, it's I can't. Wow, they just eat a whole pigeon.
Yeah, I mean, there are. I have fallen down rabbit holes online of once you start watching pelicans eating pigeons, it's very hard to stop because it's just video after video after video, and they just sit there with their mouths open. The pigeon wanders in, and then they're just gulping them down in one.
That's awful. I mean, it could be. I'm going to give benefit of doubt to pelicans here. If you're just sitting there, they've got very big mouths. Maybe they don't know what's going to wander in, and they're hoping someone will just put a large sandwich or a kebab or something they actually want to eat in there, and then a pigeon wanders in, and I suppose hey, you're hungry. What are you going to do?
Well, we at least know that they're not fussy eaters,
Yes.
because they're not even taking the feathers off or the beak. They're just swallowing the thing whole. So I guess that's in a pelican's favor.
Mm, that's true. Or perhaps maybe pigeons whole are the most delicious thing anyone could ever eat, and we're the idiots.
They might be. I mean, maybe it's something we should all try. I think I would probably start with a roast pigeon and work my
Mm,
way up
mm.
to just swallowing one entirely in its entirety down my neck. But yeah, but who am I to question a pelican if that's what they like? I'm not going to taste shame a pelican.
No, and
Let them like the things they like.
yes, I agree. I agree, and I think that's very sensible. And it could be, this all comes back around. Maybe they've been given crossing because they are like Michelin star chefs. They know tastes and ideas that we would never understand.
Yeah, I mean, maybe all the other animals are jealous. I mean, I was coming at it from the angle of the other animals wanted nothing to do with it, and then the pelican was at the bottom of the list. But actually, maybe the pelican was top because it's got some mad skills.
Yeah, I like that idea. I like that idea, and I would hope that animals are queuing up to be a queuing up crossing to be a crossing. They're queuing up to be a queue. I'm not sure how it works. I'm not sure they know how it works, but I would want a crossing named after me. Would you be happy with a Gary crossing?
I think I would, although I think I would be one of the more judgmental crossings.
Oh, I see.
I'd probably be quite careful about who I allowed to cross over it. I mean, it could maybe I could just restrict it to other Garys, but then
Right.
I mean, that's not a sister like Lineker. He would be fine.
That's
Gary
nice.
Neville,
Yeah.
let all the Garys over. But then that's not the system the other ones have chosen, have they? Because it's not pelicans only that are allowed to use pelican crossings. It's not only
No.
zebras on zebra crossings. You'd need a lot more crossings if we had this system, so it might not
Yes.
work.
Yeah, it would be really chaotic, and there'd be a lot of, there'd definitely be roads where certain animals couldn't or people couldn't cross. If you needed one for everyone's name, I mean, I'm in trouble. I'm a Tiernan. There's very unlikely to be many Tiernan crossings around, and I would have a very limited amount of roads that I could walk down.
Yeah, you would have to choose where you live very carefully because you
Yeah.
basically just want to make sure you could get to everywhere you need without ever having to cross a road.
There's a lot to. I mean, I'm not going to lie, Gary. I was very excited to have you on the show, and I knew that you were an expert in many areas. But there's a lot more to think about crossings than I think I'd ever thought about before speaking to you.
There is, I mean, this is a life's work. This is not just something that just comes to you in an hour.
Mm.
You're spending weeks, if not months, thinking about the best way for this to work, and that's why council planning is such a big issue these days. Because there's a whole departments just choosing animals,
Yeah,
and we're
yeah.
all getting on their backs, and this is hard stuff.
It is hard stuff. I have to say though, Gary, for someone who deals with crossings, you don't seem very cross.
Yeah, they are quite ironically named, I think.
Yeah.
But I could get angry when I'm crossing if that would help. I mean, I guess if I was going to be hit by a car, I would be more angry.
Yes,
But
that's very
for the
true.
most, or if there's a very bad smell in the skunk crossing, that could
Mm.
put me in a bit of a bad mood.
That's true. That's true. And I also want to give a shout out to train crossings where you can get hit by a train, just in case anyone was worried that I was leaving them out. I don't want any trains listening to think that I forgot that they had crossings too. I'm very aware. It's just it's less
Yeah,
likely, isn't it? You know.
yeah. Are train crossings where people cross train tracks, or are they where trains cross people?
Oh no, I have no idea because there are times when trains cross trains too.
Hmm.
This is a minefield. This is a can of worms crossing a worm crossing that I didn't even think about.
A worm crossing,
A
yeah,
worm
yeah.
crossing. Yeah, and trains crossing people, crossing trains, crossing people, crossing trains. It's there's a lot of crossing going on in life, and I'm starting to think, would it be easier if we all just sat on our bums?
Or we just pedestrianize every road, and that we
Yes,
have
that's
a
nice.
utopia of no vehicles and pet pelicans walking around wherever they want. No bad
Yeah.
smells. I'm starting to defeat my own campaign here,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I'm
I'd
gonna
step
stop.
away before it goes horribly. I feel like you've put so much work into this. Don't ruin it now. And also, I still think the world is crying out for a skunk crossing. And what's a little bit of skunk smell, little sort of skunk whiffy, farty smells in a day. It's going to boost everyone's like, not least, it sounds horrible, but the second you walk away from that smell and think, oh, I'm not smelling it anymore, you feel happier. So
Yeah,
your life's improved.
yeah. There actually is nothing better than escaping a terrible smell. It's one of life's
Yes.
real pleasures.
Yes, it's a good thing, and I think the work you are doing, Gary, is important and necessary. So thank you very much, and thank you for coming on the show. We've got a question that you are the expert that I think can answer it. But before we get there, I do have a couple of admin questions. I don't know how you feel. How do you feel about admin? Are you an admin person?
I actually love admin. I think
Right.
I'm very strong at it. I think I'm actually getting to the point in my life where I prefer the doing of the admin to doing the thing that the admin is about. So
Wow.
sort of my sort of dream scenario is that I'm just sitting doing spreadsheets all day, logging what I'm doing all day, but all I'm doing is updating the spreadsheet. So every cell just says wrote in the spreadsheet, wrote in the spreadsheet over and over again. I mean,
Wow.
I've got spreadsheets for basically everything. I've got one about every sandwich I've ever eaten.
Oh
I've got
wow.
one about every film I've ever watched. I've got a spreadsheet for every ghost that I've ever seen.
Oh.
That's quite a small spreadsheet,
Right. Right.
and it can be tempting for me to just make up that I've seen something, like pretend that I've seen a couple of Frankenstein's or something. But
Sure. Sure.
but admin, you've got to be honest in admin. So I
Yes.
resist the temptation to lie on my
I
spreadsheets.
mean, I also I wonder, at what point does if you're doing so much admin, at what point does your admin become your work? And then to do your work admin, you have to do work.
But that is the beauty of it though, because you're doing so much admin that you don't realize that that's all there is left,
Wow,
and you're just happy, and that's all
that's
there
a
is in
beautiful
life, really,
place.
just happiness.
It's lovely. It's lovely. I do have to ask, what is how full is your sandwich spreadsheet? Have you had a lot of sandwiches? Are you a sandwich
Yes,
novice? Yes. No. Good. Right.
yes. So it's a lot of sandwiches. You get your basic your jam sandwich, but then
Mm-hmm.
you go right up to your sort of coronation chickens and
Yes.
everything in between: cheese and ham, chicken and
Mm,
ham,
yeah.
cheese and chicken. All of those guys.
All of those. Yeah.
Um,
All of those combinations.
yeah,
Yeah.
all the sort of
Yeah.
typical guys that you get on that list. But it's
Mm,
like there's always a new sandwich. So it's
yes.
never dull for me. There's always something new happening in the sandwich world. And you might think, oh, I've tried this topping before, but wait, it's in a wrap. I've never had
Wow.
that before. So,
I mean,
yes.
there is that thing where, and I don't know if you subscribe to this ideology, but if you put something between two slices of bread, it is a sandwich, so
Yes.
almost anything. If you put a house between two slices of bread, it's a house sandwich. If you put an elephant, it's an elephant sandwich. Like it just you can. I mean, the world of sandwiches is endless.
Yeah, there is no limit to what you can do with a
Mm.
sandwich. Like there is nothing you can think of that can't be put in a sandwich.
It's
Like
true.
you could try to defeat this system by coming up with something, but as long as it is a thing, it can go in a sandwich.
Yes, it's true, isn't it? Even if you think a sandwich, no, you could put that in a sandwich.
Yeah, a sandwich, just a bread sandwich, which is just three pieces of bread together.
Yeah, still a sandwich. It's still it's
Mhm.
in. I mean, it is. Yeah, it's why I'm always amazed that more food isn't sandwiches, really, because you could always put if you have a dinner that you don't like, you could just put two bits of bread around it, and then it's a sandwich, and then you're gonna like it.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you don't have any dinner, you can just get two bits of bread, and then with the idea of some food between it, and that becomes a sandwich.
Yes, that's a great an idea sandwich. That's an amazing. I like that. I like that very much. Yeah, very good. As long as it's a good idea, you wouldn't want a bad idea sandwich, but then
No,
it'd still be a
that's the
sandwich. Yeah.
that is the danger that you can fall
Mm.
into. So you do have to be careful out there.
Yes, yes, very sensible advice. Thank you, Gary. Well, listen, I'm pleased. I'm pleased you like admin. I've got two admin questions I have to ask you legally for this show. It's just how it works. It's just
Absolutely.
these important things. I think the second one of these questions is harder, but we'll start with the first. We'll see how you go. So Gary, I'm not sure if you know, but Radio Nonsense is listened to by people of all possible ages, every age you can imagine, from sort of -12 to the Bronze Age to. Well, you're not allowed to listen if you're 100. Long story, but every other age listens in. And just to make sure that this show is safe for everyone, are there any rude words that you won't be saying during this show?
Yeah, there actually is. There was one rude word in particular that I would never ever say,
Right.
and it's not because I've got impeccable manners or a great upbringing, because I don't have those things. I am actually a known potty mouth, and when you're from the streets like me and like
Mm.
you sometimes have to fall back on those bad words.
Oh,
But
true.
um, but the one word in particular that I would never say is the one that I just don't know how to spell it or pronounce it, so I can't say it. And it's the one that you sometimes get in things like the Beano and comics,
Oh
and it's
yeah.
just like a star, a skull, a couple of exclamation marks, a question
Oh.
mark, a lightning bolt, and you know that it means something bad has happened, but you don't know what the word is. You just know that that is the worst word
Yes.
because you never see it anywhere. And there's a second reason I won't use it, which is that it reminds me of the Wingdings font. I don't know if
Oh
kids
yeah.
remember, don't know if kids know what the Wingdings font is anymore, but it was that font where every letter you typed, it gave you a little, like a very basic emoji.
Yeah, yeah.
Now,
And it
when
was very weird because also I don't know, like I've never met a wingding in my life, and I don't know where the wingding people live or how they talk. Like I can't imagine a conversation with a wingding, but if that's how they type, it must be a very weird and unusual language.
Yeah, I don't know who ever used Wingdings. I don't know if it still exists. I'll have to
Mm,
have a search in Word later. But yeah, I've got some really bad memories of Wingdings because when
mm.
I was at school, I accidentally did my geography exam in Wingdings,
Oh,
and I didn't even have a computer. I just wrote it out in Wingdings, and
wow.
because of that, I failed. And I'd actually made some really good points. I'd said some really great things about soil erosion, and the teachers couldn't understand it, so I failed. So for that reason, and also that I don't know how to say the word,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just ignore that bad word at all times.
It's very sensible, and I'm so sorry to hear that. I think Wingdings caused a lot of things to go very wrong for people. People were writing an important form, and where it would say things like proof of address, you'd end up putting like small dog, lightning strike, silly hat, monkey, and then people would say, well, this is. I'm afraid you can't have your passport now. And it would. Lots of people got into a lot of trouble, and I really don't know what the point of it was. And again, like I said, I don't know where it came from or who invented the wingdings, but they did some terrible things by bringing that into the world.
It was almost like a very early attempt at forming a new language that didn't quite take off. I think probably the
Mm.
inventor probably thought, this is it now. These are going to replace actual letters. Everyone's just going to be communicating like this. And though he reached for the stars, it didn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if there's something there. It's a bit like they tried to do hieroglyphics again, but they didn't do hieroglyphics. Like hieroglyphics, I mean, I'm not saying I could read them because I'm not an ancient Egyptian. I know that might surprise you. Despite my beard, I'm not an ancient Egyptian, but they sort of made sense. It was like person pointing over there, alligator god, having a sandwich, all the things that they did in ancient Egypt. But wingdings made no sense. It was chaos. Maybe it was just chaos. Maybe wingdings is chaos, and it's the true meaning of wow. Yeah, it was awful.
I mean, for all we know, Egyptologists haven't checked that hieroglyphics isn't just wingdings.
Maybe it would be so. Maybe that's it. They could have solved what all of these hieroglyphics said if they just. I mean, it's incredible, Gary. I'm so sorry that happened to you, and I appreciate that you won't say that word that I have never known how to say, and
No.
it's bothered me for years, and I sort of wonder how bad is it, because it's wingdings. It could just be part of a geography exam.
Yeah, I mean, I blame the teachers really. I was going for it. I was really trying my best and doing something a bit innovative, and they were having none of it. So I learned my lesson that day. But who was the real loser?
Yeah, geography, global geography.
Yeah.
I think who missed out on your knowledgeable thoughts on geography. Were you typing about erosion and rock
Yeah,
formations and
truncated spurs was a good one.
yeah, great.
Drumlins, they're like a hill that is slightly steeper on one side than the other. Loved geography, but just no one could understand me. I was ahead of my time.
Gosh,
I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know what my job would be now if only I'd managed to convince everyone of my skills back then. But something involving the planning of where rocks go. Is that a job? But I'd have that.
Well, I wonder if you'd probably have gone round, I don't know, fixing hills.
Yes.
Maybe, but I think there is a job. I don't know if anyone does that, but sometimes I look at a hill and I think someone could have fixed this by now. It's too steep.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's annoying when they're not symmetrical as well.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
when hills are just like all jaggy on one side but nice and sloping on the other. Like make up your mind if you're going to be a hill, do it properly.
Yes, I agree.
Have
I
some-
agree. Yeah.
Have some ravens flying around the top, some vultures, some really, some fire pits, that kind of thing. If you're going to be a cliff or a hill, actually go for it and do it properly.
Yeah, I agree. Stop slacking hills. That's a really good. Again, all because of wingdings. You could have been there. You could have been making hills proper, right? And it's made me so angry. I'm gonna look up wingdings after we finish talking, and maybe I'll write a rude letter to the person that made wingdings in wingdings and see how they like it. That's
That would be the ultimate insult for that
it would
person.
be such an insult because they wouldn't know what was going on. Wow. Well, listen, thank you, Gary, and I thank you for not saying that word that I can't even attempt
No,
to say.
I never will.
No, and I most certainly wouldn't either. So thank you. Listen, the second question. I see how you go with this. You handled that one very well. This second question is, Gary, would you rather have a nose that actually ran away when it got runny, or every time you used any cutlery, it went wobbly like jelly?
Well, I think I'd probably rather have the cutlery that goes wobbly, because I don't want my nose running away. I mean, even if I am at the aforementioned stinking traffic crossing,
Yes.
I want to know if there's a bad smell around. With wobbly cutlery, though, it sounds quite fun. I think I'd quite like that. I mean, it depends what I'm eating. I don't want to be eating hot soup with a wobbly spoon. That's a recipe for disaster.
Yes.
But if I was eating jelly, that would be brilliant, because the fun of jelly is the wobbliness. So you're sort of doubling the wobbly thrill by having a wobbly spoon.
Would the wobbly spoon cancel out the jellies? Would you find jelly actually very easy to eat with a wobbly spoon, because the wobbles of the spoon would cancel out the jelly's wobbles?
Yeah, I mean, there is that old phrase, two wobblies don't make a wobbly, isn't there? So
yes,
I think,
classic phrase,
yeah. So, I mean, I would be willing to give it a try in the name of science, because I think, it's going to be a hell of a ride no matter what happens in the end. I want to experience that journey. I want to try all the foods with wobbly cutlery. Ironically, couldn't wouldn't really be much use for sandwiches because they're handheld anyway. But
Yes. Well, I did. I mean, it's funny because I did think, as I obviously, it is a legal requirement for this show to ask these sorts of questions. This question was planned long in advance of me talking to you, and I hadn't realised your your sandwich expertise. And actually, you don't need cutlery for sandwiches. So if you had wobbly cutlery, it's inconsequential. You still eat your sandwich.
yeah, and there's so much food you can eat without cutlery.
Mm.
Even jelly itself, you can kind of just drink it, can't you? I'm not sure if jelly is considered a liquid or a solid. Maybe it's like a third. I've discovered a third substance
No
here,
one
but
really knows, and confusingly, for any listeners to this in America, we're talking Jello, because they might think you're
yeah,
talking jam, which is a whole different, which you can also drink, and you could also use a wobbly spoon to eat, but it is a whole different game.
yes. Yeah, there's a lot going on with jelly, isn't there?
Mm.
There's a lot to consider when you talk about it because there's people just giving it different names
Yeah,
for no
yeah.
reason, and then there's whether or not you're gonna improve it by using wobbly cutlery, and then also is it better with ice cream or without ice cream? There's
Oh,
always that question.
yeah, it's with though, isn't it? I mean, that's not. I don't think that's a hard question. I'm going to jump straight in. It's with. It's always with ice cream, right? No.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the ice cream is miles better than the jelly, so that's
Yeah,
you kind
yeah.
of just you could take it a step forward and just have ice cream.
That's true. Yeah, you're right. Actually, the ice cream makes the jelly feel lacking. Yeah, you're. Yeah, I just jelly is. There's a lot of problems with jelly. Is that it doesn't need to wobble. It could have more flavor. We don't know if it's a solid or a liquid. Like again, much like your hills, sort it out.
Mm,
Just know what you are.
yeah.
Sort it out.
Also, with the other option, just to clarify, if my
Mm.
nose is running away, do I have like skin across the gap, or am I just left with a gaping hole through to my brain?
um, it's not specified. I don't know. It could be that you've got a very sort of detachable nose, and actually you're just left with a sort of like a plug, like a sort of plug socket
Because
system.
that would actually be okay if it was if I could just take my nose off and on anytime I liked, because I
Mm,
could just like
mm,
carry it around in my pocket. If I thought I was going to be in a situation where my nose was in danger, say I was playing rugby or something, I could
mm.
just leave the nose in the changing room. Um, so yeah, I think there are some benefits of that. I just
That's
don't want a
sensible.
huge hole in the middle of my face.
No, I get that. I get that. But I mean, you're saying to me. I think often when it's very cold outside, I get a cold nose, and I wish maybe what if I could put this in my pocket? That'd be really
Yeah,
handy. Yeah, yeah, that's very
I
sensible.
mean, ideally you could put your whole face in your pocket. It'd be incredible. You'd never get cold, or just climb into a pocket. Basically, is what you want, isn't it?
Yeah, but then it can't be your own. If you've climbed into your own pocket, you get into all sorts of issues about how do you. Yeah, like who's walking along trying to get where you're going if you're inside your own pocket. You want to be in someone else's pocket who then
Mm.
carries you around. I think that's a better place to be.
Then you're introducing giants into the
Yes, yes,
system. So it's
yes.
yeah, yeah. What I was picturing more was just I'm carrying a massive pocket around with me, maybe a
Nice.
huge pair of trousers, and if it gets cold, I just sort of tuck myself into the pocket and wait it
Oh,
out, sort of like
that's nice.
hibernating. Hmm.
Yes, and you're right. That's less dangerous than just having giants around, especially if they're the kind of fee fi fo fum giants that like eating people.
Yes.
Yeah, you're right. You're very sense again, Gary. It's lovely to have someone as sensible as you on this show. You don't just you've got the expertise, but you really think these things through. And I do have to ask now that you've almost convinced yourself about the nose. Are you still sticking with the wobbly cutlery?
I think I am.
Okay,
I
okay.
don't want to be the sort of person who just goes back and forth from one to the other. I'm going to stick with that wobbly cutlery. There's too many unknowns with the nose situation.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
and I know that with the wobbly cutlery I can fall back on sandwiches. So let's stick with that.
very sensible. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking that question as seriously as it needed to be. And now listen, look, we've got this question that has been sent in. This is the reason that we have you here, Gary. This question, I'm going to let you know that I'm going to start reading the question now. So when I say hi, my name is Maya, you don't think that my name is Maya. I just want you to know in
Thank you.
advance. That's the first bit of it. It does say hi, my name is Maya, but that is not my name. I am just reading what's been sent. So don't. I don't want
Great.
to cause any confusion.
That would have really confused me. So I'm really
Yes,
glad
yes,
you've explained that.
yes. Well, I thought it would, because at the end it also says thank you, Maya, but they're not thanking me. There's a comma in there, but you didn't know about it.
Oh, there's a lot to this, isn't there?
Yes,
I was
there's a
not
lot.
expecting this level of
I know,
thought
I
to be
know.
put into this.
I'm giving you. This is why I like to prep the guests and make sure that you don't feel, stressed at any point or confused. So this question says, "Hi, my name is Maya, and I'm 10 years old. My question is, can animals that have scales catch fleas? Thank you, Maya."
Well, what I would say to that is fleas. I mean, that fleas for a kickoff, they're famously very good at getting into places, aren't they? They
Mm,
can get in underneath like a tiny hair on a dog. They can slip under there.
mm,
They can get underneath a mouse. They can get into they can get into 18 rated films at the cinema when they're not even 18. They
wow.
can get into that lounge at the airport where you always see people in suits walking in and you don't know what they're doing. They can go in there.
Wow.
So I think they can get pretty much anywhere they want, which makes me think that a scale is not going to be a problem. I think they could get themselves under a little scale. I think it'd be quite warm in there. They could have quite a nice little time, make themselves a little hot chocolate, and
Mm.
just wait out the bad weather. So yeah, absolutely, they could do that.
Well, that's very yeah, that's very interesting. I can't believe they get into those airport lounges. I didn't. I mean, I've got no idea how anyone gets into them, but fleas are doing it, and that makes a lot of sense. I suppose I'm going to throw a slight spanner in the works here, Gary, and I do wonder. We're saying that can they catch fleas? We're assuming she means can fleas live on an animal with scales? What if Maya means if someone throws fleas at an animal with scales, can they catch the fleas as part of a flea catching game?
Well, there's a lot of ambiguity in this question, isn't there? I
There
mean,
is, yeah, yeah.
where, because the other thought I had is that what if she actually means weighing scales rather than the
Yes.
scales that you would get on your crocodiles, your geckos? I mean, you could be
Yes.
talking about what if there's an animal that has some kitchen scales? Can it get can it get infested with fleas? I think it could just sort of bat them away. Not in a
Mm.
sort of completely violent way, but just in a sort of letting the fleas know that it's there and keeping them at bay in the sort of way that when footballers they sometimes say at the start of a match they put in a really hard tackle right at the start just to
Yeah.
sort of show just to sort of let them know you're there. That's
Yeah,
what they
yeah,
could do with the kitchen scales to bat away a flea. So there's all
yeah,
sorts of ways of reading into this question. I'm not
yeah.
sure I entirely have confidence in Maya here.
Well, you see, no, I mean, well, for a start, I just like to put in. They could also they'd bat them away, but they would weigh the fleas first. They just check exactly how many there were before they, I trust this animal to be very clever like that. But they could, of course, yes, Maya could have meant musical scales, and then of course that
Yes.
brings in an issue of if an animal has musical scales, they might be able to catch fleas. They could, in fact, catch a flea circus if they're playing that kind of circus music. That causes a whole different flea catching situation.
Yeah, I mean, there is so many possibilities. There's also the sort of scales that you get when you are uh, when you've got in a shower head or in a kettle that
Oh
you have to use the
yeah.
descaler to get rid of. So if you were an animal in that situation and you had those type of scales, you'd probably just use a bit of descaler, wouldn't you? And you'd
Mm,
you'd get rid of the fleas that way. In
mm,
fact,
mm.
when it fizzes in the kettle, that's quite nice. That would sort of be like a bath bomb for the animal. You just get in a little bath with that, and then that would get rid of the fleas. No problem.
That's a lovely idea. That's a lovely idea. Yeah, but then they'd all hear about this lovely spa that was going on, and they'd all want to have a fizzy bath. I mean, my worry is if fleas are entering these airport lounges and having a lovely time there, and entering all these kind of exclusive locations, they're going to want to go to a fizzy bath spa. They're going to want to go to a musical location. They're going to want to go to a fancy kitchen. It sounds to me like fleas are very adventurous, very high standard little bugs.
Yeah, I mean they've got a lot going on when you think about
They
it.
do, they
I
really
think
do,
I
yeah.
think the fleas have got a better life than I do now that I'm thinking about this. They're
Mm,
they're doing all sorts of stuff. I guess the question is, would the animal want to get rid of the fleas? The fleas seem quite sort of socially
mm,
mobile and quite good company. So maybe we all just live together. The scales, the animals, the fleas. Yeah,
it's a
we just
nice
have a
dream.
great time.
That's a lovely dream. That's how I hope things go. Actually, for too long, people have tried to make it out like fleas are something you get if you're dirty, which isn't true. They go like clean hair as well, don't they? But I think let's change fleas' social image here and now. It's time. It's the time of the fleas. Fleas are coming back.
Yeah, I mean they're companions, aren't they? And who doesn't want a little tiny companion that you can just
that's nice.
keep in your scales?
That's lovely. Well, if you're in a pocket of a giant trouser, you can then have fleas in the pocket of wherever they're hiding on you. Yeah.
Yeah, and to the flea, we're the giant pocket, aren't they? So
yeah, exactly. That's lovely. That's lovely. Well, I hope Maya. I mean, Maya could be a flea. We don't know. I'm assuming she's 10 years old. It's probably maybe that's a bit old for a flea. I don't know. She could be a flea, or she could be a flea advocate. Maybe she's asking this question in the hope that we will promote fleas that little bit more. So I hope she's pleased with that.
Yeah, I think she'll have got a lot out of that, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, thank you, Gary. It's been so lovely having you on the show. Now, your expertise has been amazing. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground, literally in some of the crossings, and also in terms of sandwiches, a little bit about ghosts and of course, fleas. I've got to ask, for many of our listeners, they might not be aware that you have got an amazing book out at the moment called The Notwitches, which is written by yourself and it is illustrated by Dottie Sutton with brilliantly funny illustrations. What is it? It's about not witches. So it's not about witches, but it's not about witches, but it's not about witches. It's not witches.
I'm duty bound not to say if there were witches in it or not. But the Notwitches is the name of the family that live in the book, and the story is all about a little girl called Melinda Notwitch and her attempt to escape her really disgusting aunts, who have got a lot of really horrible things about them, much worse than having fleas. And she goes on a big adventure. She meets goblins, she meets a rock monster, she meets a cat that can sort of talk. And it's got amazing illustrations by Dottie Sutton, and it's out now.
It sounds absolutely brilliant. And as I said to you before we started, because listeners, I did speak to Gary before we started recording. We've got a copy. I haven't had a chance to look at it because my daughter has hogged it selfishly, giggling away to herself, and just keeps telling me who her favourite aren't Notwitches. So I have no idea if it's good, but she loves it. So I would that's my unresearched opinion there. So I'm not allowed.
Well, thank you so much to her.
So Gary, well, listen, Notwitches. Everyone listening needs to go and grab a copy, and of course, in this episode there'll be there's a competition to win a copy too, signed by Gary himself, which is very exciting. Will you include a flea or a sandwich in there, or?
I will definitely include some fleas. They will be invisible, but sure. They can just take my word for it that they're in there.
That's very lovely of you. Thank you. And what have you got coming up in the next 300 to 400 years, Gary? You got much coming up?
I have Notwitches 2 coming up in August.
Oh, that's nearer. That's closer than 300.
Yeah.
That's good, yeah.
That's very much the near side of the next 300 years. But other than that, I will just play it by ear and hope that my nose stays on and take it from there.
Fantastic. Well, brilliant. Thank you so much, Gary. Good luck with all the Notwitches, but good luck with all the crossings, all the fleas, and living in a pocket. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Big thanks to Gary for taking time out of his very important skunk crossing campaign to help me answer Maya's important question. Maya, I do hope you liked your answer, but if not, why not put any complaints that you have on a flea and it'll get stuck on a chameleon and I'll never have to read it. Do check out Gary's amazingly funny book, The Notwitches, and I will pop a link to buy it in the podcast blurb. But of course, if you live in the UK or Ireland, why not enter our competition to win a signed copy? All you have to do is make up a really rubbish spell, tell me how you'd cast it and what it would do, and the ones that make me laugh the most will win a book. There are 5 to give away. Just get your nearest slug brain, grown up, to help you email me your entries to podcast@comedyclub4kids.co.uk before April 23rd. And of course, using that email, you can send in anything else you like too, like any questions you need to have answered.
Little dinner poofies, your lovely cauldron is ready. Please get in.
Thanks, Mrs. Snaggleteeth. I will. I'll get straight in this lovely, warm cauldron bath. That sounds lovely. Actually, before I climb in, would you mind holding on to my watch? I don't want to get it damaged in the water.
Of course. Give it here, dearie.
Thanks. It's really important to me. It's real silver, you know.
Silver? What? Oh, no! I'm melting! Help me, I'm melting!
Oh. Oh dear. Listeners, is it rude to have a bath if your host has just melted? Yeah, it probably is, isn't it? Maybe I'd just better go. I'll just get my watch. Ugh. Oh dear, this is awkward. Thanks, Mrs. Snaggletooth. Oh, what a shame. Bye.
You have been listening to
Comedy Club for Kids presents.
Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense, Radio Nonsense. It's the end.